Yeah, we're live. Hi, guys. Couple of minutes late.
What you all are watching is a video of famous people morphing into reptilian characteristics before your very eyes. Is it possible that famous people in Hollywood, the British
Hey,
royal
Dane. Good to see
family,
you.
powerful political figures all over the world, is it possible that they have so much reptilian DNA in them that sometimes they just can't help them little selves? And we can actually see with our eyes these reptilian characteristics. Well, tonight on the Midnight Ride, we're going to be exploring this. Is there any basis in fact
Hey, you boy. Hi, Trace. Good to see you guys.
that would support this to be a possibility? We're going to be showing you things, they're just absolutely amazing. And are these things real? Could they be a hoax? Well, we're going to be exploring that tonight, and we're going to be showing evidence that is just absolutely astounding. We're going to be buttressing the case for this being a possibility from some sources and material that you probably never heard before, just like this. But after all, that is what we do on the Midnight Ride.
Wow. Wish it was clearer. Yeah, Tracy, I was late. I usually give Diane a heads up when I'm late, but I didn't know I was going to be late.
And I stood on the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up, rise up. Who was able to make war with him.
Well, like that too. And it's still outside. I want to get back soon. I got back soon to get back.
Oh, not coming yet.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Midnight
Come
Ride.
on, hold up.
I want to welcome each and every one of you into the Puritan Barn, into the Now You See TV studios for the Midnight Ride with myself and John Pound.
Okay, I can't stop these guys glaring because the black background. So we just have to put up with the glare.
Tonight, we have a happy little broadcast about the end of the world. Reptilian royals. It's going to be coming in with the hot sauce. So you want to get your popcorn ready for this one. And the best thing about it, you're not going to have to wait very long because we are now.
Live.
Live.
What's up again, guys? Back with another amazing episode. This one's going to be something that you will not want to miss. And so make sure you guys stick around. Let us know how you're doing. Let us know where you're at in the chat and out there in the comment section for those of you that are watching this after the live broadcast. With that being said, hold tight. We're going to be right back after a word from our sponsors. Many mainstream companies put dangerous chemicals in their products that contribute to disease.
Thank you. We'll buy it next time, John.
Back. Thank you so much. If there's anything you're interested at all in there, check out the links below. All the stuff that we have is there. Also, check out fojcradio.com. That is where you can find David and Donna Carico's ministry stuff that they've been doing for over the last couple scores, so 40 years plus. And so make sure you check that out. Also, check out nystv.org, exclusive content, stuff that you don't get just anywhere else. And other links are in the description below, so check those out.
Wow,
with that being said, David, I think we're ready to get on the ride unless you got something you want to add.
Well, I might make mention that Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central.
Diane, Tasmania is close to Antarctica. I wonder if something from there affected the whales.
Time for all of you that would go to fojcradio.com and hit the link there to our Rumble channel. You will be watching our JFK assassination anniversary show. We did one here on the Midnight Ride, and we're going to do another one. We're not even going to talk about any of the same things. We're going to be taking a deep dive, and you know you're going to like it. So that'll be 8 p.m. Central Time, Sunday night. All right, then.
Very good. Let's get started, David. This is going to be a hot one, so we want to make sure that we give it ample time to talk about the stuff that you guys are waiting to hear, because we promise you that if you stick around, you are going to enjoy what you listen to. So stick around.
All right. And here we see a young lady that is probably one of the most popular, if not the most popular entertainer around. And Taylor Swift, as many of you know, put out a little message this week that the Swifties, it's almost time to shed their physical bodies and ascend. And it looks like little Taylor done and beamed up, because where are her eyes? You know, that she just does.
They didn't put it up like that, surely.
Does not look right. You know, I tell you what, there's just something wrong here that doesn't pass the smell test. There's something very, very unnatural about this young lady. Now, rumor has it, and far be us from anyone who would accuse us of being conspiratorial, but there are people that actually think that Taylor Swift is a clone of Zena LaVey. And
they look very similar. Wow.
Can say is there it is. Check it out. Make your own decision. There is an uncanny similarity. And what we see with Miss Swift, she is swiftly going darker and darker and darker. Her eyes and her whole persona and her entire lifestyle. Something is not right here. And we see the same thing with so many people in Hollywood, that there are things just deeply, deeply.
Tracy, I've shown Gigabyte's paintings when she puts them up. I've shown them.
Wrong. It's more than just sinfulness. It is rotten literally to the core, and literally rotten down to the DNA. Strange things going on in the gold mine, as Jim Morrison would say.
You know, it's interesting. Like last week, we did a show talking about the possibility of 33 million or more, probably more, fallen angels inhabiting the earth, with whether it be inside or on the crust in the top of the earth around with us, maybe shifting into things. And it's interesting that we kind of tied in the stars, the angels, with these people, and we're starting to see a lot of them that are starting to kind of bring a cult following. And it looks like this is a dangerous one. This reminds me of the one where they drank the Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah,
getting ready to leave their bodies. And a lot, you know, as you know, angels like worship. That's why people build idols and all these different things for their children, the demonic entities. But these people love it when people worship them, and for her to be able to have this much influence as a Satanist or as a person who is in a high power of witchcraft of some sort is really doesn't look good for America. Let's put it that way. But she's just one of them. She's one of thousands of these people.
Yeah, and what we're seeing with Miss Swift, excuse the pun, but her followers are, just like you say, swiftly becoming a cult. There are people that are so crazy about her, they would do anything for her.
Yeah, do that gigabyte and I'll show the guys.
Scary. And, you know, now they're all, little Taylor said we're getting ready to leave her bodies. Well, I think her eyeballs might have already left the building. So we just want to keep an eye on that one. Now, we're going to look at a page here. This is from a book called The Giants of Stonehenge in Ancient Britain by Hugh Newman and Jim Vieira. And we're going to be looking this evening at the area, and you see here at the very top of the page, we see the Avebury Stone Circle. As you come down south, you come into Stonehenge. And by the way, this is another whole purview. This is crop circle ground zero. The most profound crop circles ever are right in this area between Avebury and Stonehenge. Not a coincidence. Wow. And as we come south here, we see an amazing concentration.
Yeah, boy, post it on YouTube then.
We're going to be sharing with you, and we're going to be bringing in some unique layers of understanding that I bet you've not heard before. But what we're going to be doing is just, well, you know, do we have any reason to believe that there could be reptilian blood in the British royals? And we have very much reason to believe that, and to believe that indeed there is reptilian blood in many of the famous people and Hollywood and politics. Now, this is the book that I referenced, and this book is a hoot. Really enjoyed this book. The Giants of Stonehenge in Ancient Britain, Hugh Newman and Jim Vieira. And on page 362, there's a concept here that we're going to be expanding on. This is also, there's another writer that I have read that has had this opinion, and I'm coming to this opinion myself. And it says here on page 362, there have been suggestions that Enoch may have traveled to Britain and was involved in either building stone circles or recording their astronomical science. We just finished this week on our Book of Enoch commentary, which we're going through. It's on the Now You See TV subscription channel. This week we recorded Enoch chapter 72, which is in the Book of the Heavenly Luminaries, and we talked about this very thing, and we brought out scriptures from the Book of Enoch that would lead us to believe that Enoch could have been looking at megalithic structures in the area of Britain that gave him knowledge about the movement of the heavenly luminaries. And I'm coming to be where, and of course, this is theoretical. We can't just absolutely prove this, but the more and more evidence I'm coming all the time leads me to believe that Enoch did go into the area of Great Britain and into the area of the Arctic regions.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I remember going through, and I can't remember what chapter it was where we talked about Enoch actually walking off into this area. But man, I think you got the reference in here. But it's amazing to me the amount of stuff that Enoch, which is quoted in the Bible, in the book of Jude, says he prophesied, that the detail he goes into about this stuff that he experiences is pretty amazing. And for those of you that have never read the book of Enoch, I suggest it. I had a guy ask me, he's like, look, man, I'm trying to get my children interested in the Bible. I'm trying to get all these different things. And he said, is there any other, extracurricular books of the Bible that that might get them interested? And I said, are they interested in superheroes? Are they interested in all these different things? And he said, yeah, super interested. They like Marvel comics and all that. And I said, well, I know for me, when I read the book of Enoch, it really sparked a lot of interest and a lot of interesting things that started to come loose in the Bible. So he
Yeah.
got that book for his son, and lo and behold,
Enoch is a fascinating book.
within like a few months, this kid was wanting to know more, wanting to learn more about the Bible, and wanting to see more about it. So it's really interesting and a great book to study. And you know, not to plug everything that we do, but the Book of Enoch video commentary is one of the things that I think that I'm the most thankful that we do out of all of them.
I'm a little stoked about it myself.
Yeah.
And you know, I was coming up to this section on the heavenly luminaries section. I said, man, I just don't get all what's going on here. And I have to believe the Lord is helping us, because there have just been all kinds of concepts that's helping me understand this better and better. And if you really want to put some bubbles in your soda, just check that out. Because I tell you what, it's pretty good, even if me and John are doing it. It's
He
pretty
wears a good beard though, doesn't he, Trace?
pretty frosty. I'm really stoked about enjoying it, and it just gets better and better as we go along. So that's there for you if you choose to check it out. Now let's look at a couple of scriptures here from the book of Enoch, chapter 61 and verse 2. And I asked the angel, saying unto him, why have those angels taken these cords and gone off? And he said unto me, they have gone to measure. Now, if you have ever seen any of the recreations on the History Channel or Nat Geo, where they show how these megalithic structures were made, they were made with cords. They would stretch cords out, and they would get the alignments with the sun, and they would measure them very precisely with cords. So, you know, here we have the angels taking the cords are going off. Now, here again, we have to open our mind to the possibility that certainly a lot of these things were fallen angel worship centers. But it is also possible that, and we know it's a fact, if the book of Enoch has any credibility, that some of these megalithic structures could have been originally built with instructions from the good angels. We cannot rule that out. And right here, if the book of Enoch has any credibility, we certainly have to at least put this idea on the table. Now in verse 5, and these measures shall reveal all the secrets of the depths of the earth. Now, we've talked a lot, and in our last book of the Enoch commentary, we talked about the Egyptian concept of the Dewat, the underworld. And we were talking about the 12 portals in the book of Enoch, chapter 72. And the Egyptians believed in the same 12 portals, and they actually believed that there were times when there was actually, this is kind of like Stranger Things from the sci-fi series, where there was an underneath world that actually received sunlight at certain periods of time. Very interesting concept, and certainly not out of line biblical, which we talked quite a bit about the inner earth, the hollow earth, and a lot of these concepts. But it says, and these measures shall reveal all the secrets of the depths of the earth. Just like here we have a megalithic structure, and they are set with different portals to show you just when the movements of the heavenly luminaries, and also the secrets of the depth of the earth. And it is no doubt that perhaps the structure that was built.
Diane, if AI takes over the health industry and writes prescriptions and that, I wonder if it's going to do the right thing or it's going to do the wrong thing, because it's easy to do the wrong thing.
Is not there, and perhaps this could have been Stonehenge or the Avebury Circle, which we're going to be looking at, that are incomplete and not totally as they once were. But it says, and those who have been destroyed with the desert, and those who have been devoured by the beasts, and those who have been devoured by the fish of the sea, that they may return and stay themselves on the day of the elect one, for none shall be destroyed before the Lord of spirits, and none can be destroyed.
If they become doctors, I wonder if you're a druggie and you go in and ask a doctor, because people do doctors' rounds and go and get prescriptions off so many doctors. I wonder if the AI one would be more sympathetic or more stricter. I wonder which way to go.
destroyed. So we have to, and we have to at least put this idea on the table here. Now, this is a book by Christopher Knight, Robert Lomas. It's entitled Uriel's Machine. And in the book of Enoch, Uriel is the angel that is in charge of the angels that move the heavenly luminaries. Now, for those of you, and I know we've got a lot of new listeners tonight, and in biblical cosmology and in the book of Enoch, stars are equated with angels, both good and bad. And in this book here, Uriel's Machine, they have the theory that Enoch, well, just like I read there from Mr. Vieira and Hugh Newman, that Enoch did go to England, and chapter 7 of this book is entitled The Enoch Zone. The Enoch Zone, and they call this area, now the area we showed you there in from Mr. Vieira, Mr. Newman's book, that began with the Avebury Circle and comes south, and we're going to kind of take you on a panorama this evening. We're going to start with the Avebury Circle, and we're going to take a little trip down through the Enoch Zone. And we're going to show you some absolutely amazing things that would absolutely give us reason to believe that this was, at the time of the antediluvian world, if there were a greater concentration of Nephilim and giants on earth, I don't know where it would have been. And we're going to show you the deep, deep roots in their own history and their own literature that would give us every reason to believe that Nephilim DNA is in the very root of British royalty. Now, on page 152 of this book, it says, the most famous stone circle, Stonehenge, in the country of Wiltshire, is close to the southern limit of the zone described by Enoch. As we also have seen at around 8000 BC, some unknown group erected 2 large wooden poles where its car park stands today. This would put us back within the time frame of the biblical Enoch. We're talking back in the antediluvian world, and he gets into a lot of detail, and I'm not just sure about all of his calculations, but I do believe that this theory, just based upon the scriptures and based upon the book of Enoch, that we have reason to believe here that we might have something here in this concept. Now we'll look at another scripture. This is Enoch 79:6. Such is the picture and sketch of every luminary which Uriel the archangel, who is their leader, showed me. Now here we have Enoch claiming that Uriel showed him a sketch and a picture, and he's not showing him a Polaroid. And I believe what he is seeing is an actual sketch on the ground of a megalithic structure, and it's known that Stonehenge is literally a clock and an observatory that gives you the movements of the heavenly luminaries. It is now known that right here in our area, that there are Indian mounds and structures that are aligned with the heavenly luminaries. We've got them right in our area and all over the world. That this was something that is a commonplace trait in these megalithic structures. And there's a scripture here. It says, with chains shall they be bound, and in their assemblage place of destruction shall they be imprisoned, and all their work shall vanish from the face of the earth. And I believe that what we're looking at Stonehenge, Pumapunko, Chichen Itza, and so many of these sites that we're talking about are obviously incomplete pictures of these works of the giants. And I believe at the time that Enoch lived, that there were more complete structures of these megalithic, and I think quite possibly that some of these started off as good angelic projects and were corrupted as this menace spread from the Genesis 6 scenario all across the earth. Now, we'll have another very interesting text here. This is from the book of Jasher that would also buttress this theory that Enoch did get around, bless his little heart. He did some moving, and according to the book of Jasher, when Enoch was taken up, he was in a very cold place. And we have connected this in other midnight rides with the Arctic regions. But in Jasher, the 3rd chapter and the 38th verse, and all those kings went to the place, and they found the earth there filled with snow. And upon the snow were large stones of snow. And there have been large pyramids found in Antarctica and also in the northern regions. Just makes me wonder. And one said to the other, "Come, let us break through the snow and see perhaps the men that remained with Enoch are dead and are now under the stones of snow." And they searched but could not find him, for he had ascended into heaven. So, according to the book of Jasher, we have Enoch in an area that is very cold. So, I'm just saying, I've got a lot of things here that I'm finding and that I'm seeing are causing me to take the theory that is put forth by Mr. Newman, Mr. Vieira, and Knight Lomas, that indeed this area in England could be the Enoch zone. Now we're going to take a little trip down the Enoch zone, and we're going to look. We're right here at the top of what would be called the Enoch zone and the Avebury Circle, which is very close to Stonehenge, and probably there'll be some time we'll take a deep dive into the crop circle manifestations in this area. It is just this is crop circle ground zero right here, and that's not a coincidence.
Wow, Gigabyte, that's impressive. That's a beautiful painting.
Is it a crop circle?
Wow,
UFO,
that's pretty good.
Activity, and of course the UFO activity. This is just the continued operation of the fallen ones and the Nephilim, their brood. But here we see this amazing structure here in Avebury. You see here this huge stones around this huge circle. And what we basically have here, we have the recreation of a portal. And these are just basically, I call them Nephilim churches, where they got together to access portals. Now, over here to the right in this picture, you can see these stones, how large they are. They're large, and I mean, this thing is huge, this Avebury circle, and this is what is called a hinge. And we see these hinges all over this good old flat earth. And also, we see a smaller signature of this in the spirals. And spirals are found in the American West, the petroglyphs. We see these spirals, we see them out on the Skinwalker Ranch. We see the spirals here. Now, here again, you see just how large these things are huge. Who put these things there? I mean, there's thousands of these huge stones in this huge circle. And this is called the Avebury Circle and the Avebury Hinge. Now, it'd be easy for me to believe that it had to be someone pretty strong and pretty big and pretty strong to set these rascals in place.
Yeah, it had to be something huge. But I mean, you see these things everywhere. It's interesting too because in the Book of Enoch episode that we did, we talked about the zodiac and the 12 portals and the gates that the sun goes through and how.
Yeah, Tracy, it's stunning, isn't it? It's that good.
And,
you got a lot of talent, Gigabyte.
Too,
you should keep painting.
The sun goes through and these line up of these stones. If I could be a fly on the wall a few thousand years ago just to see how this stuff worked, it would be amazing. I would love to see that.
Yeah. And the one scripture in the book of Enoch leads me to believe that there was a time where there was a lot more to the Avebury Circle and Stonehenge than we see now. It could have even been one huge complex. Now, let's go to the land of Israel and let's look at a hinge. And this is called Gilgal Rephaim. And this is right at the place where the Bible describes that Elijah was taken up, And sometimes I just got to preach it like I feel it. And, and the way I believe it went down right here, like I say, this is a portal. And they were having them a little Nephilim church. And the purpose of portals, is to access portals into the other realms in the second and the third heaven and into the heart of the earth and possibly beyond the ice wall. And I believe that these old giants and their followers, they were doing them a little Nephilim church here. And they looked out and there was old Elijah and the chariots come down and you just see you later, boys. Here's how it's done. Here's how you would ascend in the third heaven. And that's what these things are all about. It's about illegal access into the third heaven. It's going back. The angels wanted, it's just like Isaiah 14, I will ascend. And this is what it's all about. And this is how we understand the portals, we understand the spirals and all of these things. And you can even see pictures of galaxies. What they tell us are galaxies, but they're really portals. You can see them spiraling in the sky. And more people are photographing spirals in the sky. They're appearing more and more often, and individuals are photographing these things.
Yeah, and to think, these angels at one time that were, before they were here on Earth, they had this technology in order to move about through crafts. We talked about on one of our episodes where we talked about the cherubs and the wheel within the wheels that Ezekiel describes. And so they had this technology, this ability, and this desire to move, move like they're moving. And so I'm with you, David. I think a lot of this is remnant of that technology that they used at the time. And, we'll probably talk about this, but I think that explains a lot why over these sites there's so many churches and so many federal facilities and UN facilities over these sites. It has to be.
And if you look, you can look at pictures of Gilgal Rephaim. There's probably millions of big stones here, and they're just piled together. Now, that would have took so many man hours of work. It's just phenomenal. And I mean, they're not little bitty. So, there we go. We have the Gilgal Rephaim, and we see these also right here in good old America. And this is a picture from page 94. This is from On the Trail of the Nephilim by L.A. Marzulli. And this is a drawing of a hinge. It says one of two hinges at Charleston, West Virginia, was 666 feet in circumference. Well, I wonder why it's 666 feet in circumference. Is it a coincidence that the Amorite number for the Sun Father was used in solar temples in the Ohio Valley?
Looks like it.
We have right here in America, we have right in our area in Indiana and in Kentucky, the absolute conclusive proof for anyone that's open-minded that there are Canaanite and Amorite relics right here. I mean, the idea of isolationism, and this is basically the theory that is taught in secular schools, that there was no communication in ancient times between different civilizations. And there absolutely was in the antediluvian world. There was the pretty much the comparison of the one world order, where there was literally a worldwide culture, where there was communication and travel, and a very sophisticated level of civilization far beyond what we're able to do today in many areas.
And people have to remember too that at one time, and I believe this because the Bible speaks of it, and also many people believe this to be true, but at one time all of the continents were together in one spot. So we had an easy ability.
I believe that.
World government. And it's really clear to me that all of these sites that have the same exact gods, maybe with a different language, but the same exact serpent gods, the same exact monuments, the same exact worship tactics, the rituals that they do, it's no coincidence, because at one time, as we read in the scripture, at one time, the entire world was subdued by giants, by fallen angels, and then even after that, subdued by Nimrod. So we have this time period, and then the earth wasn't divided until the days of Peleg, according to the Bible.
there are so many interesting things. Just one, for instance, we could throw out so many, but in the first episode of Cities Lost in Time, on we're gonna Brian Reese and I'll be floating this out probably about the first Sunday night in December. And just one of the many instances in King Tut's tomb, they found a little crate full of boomerangs. And the Egyptians were very skillful with boomerangs. Well, guess where they turn up? The boomerang turns up in Chichen Itza. And they're
Wow.
boomerangs. Well, just like the Egyptian boomerangs. And that's just one of many, 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 many things that we can prove the interrelatedness of these ancient cultures all over the world. This picture here,
Okay, so that's where the Aborigines got the boomerang from. Makes sense.
is from 97 of the same book, On the Cradle of the Nephilim by L.R. Marzulli. And it says here, I'll just read you a little of the text. In Lexington, Kentucky, and in Charleston, West Virginia, stood hinges that were 555 feet in circumference. 555 was symbolic of the sacred marriage because multiplied by pi, it would equal 1746, or the sum total of 666 plus 1080. Also, 555 times 12 inches equals 6,660. The number 555.5 needs to be stretched to achieve the 1746. This numerological codex was adopted by the Masons and explains why the Washington Monument is 555 feet in height. Also note the 33-foot gateway. Now,
Diane, you remember Mike from around the world said there's a giant volcano under Italy, and the whole land mass of Italy is at risk, like not Greenland. What's the other one going off now? That island, Santorini, I think. Same sort of thing going on. Really bad volcanoes that are going to ruin the geography.
Nobody with a rational mind can attribute this to coincidence. You just cannot do it. It says many of the gateways in the earthworks in Ohio were 33 feet wide. 33 is the square root of 1080. And
Wow.
of course, there's many, the symbolic meaning of 33. We've talked about this in a lot of broadcasts. And one of the most significant, when Joshua came into the promised land, on the east side of the Jordan, he drove out two kings, Og, the king of Bashan, and Sihon, the king of the Amorites. And guess how many he drove out on the west side of the Jordan? 31. 33 Nephilim kings were disposed by the Israelite army. They're still sore about that. They're still sore about that. They really are. And Satan is wanting to reestablish his kingdom. And that's what this is about. It's about a war between the Most High God, the seed of the woman, the seed of the serpent. And this is playing out in a cosmic battle that we are living, and we're a part of this. And it's really exciting times. Now, we have here the Glastonbury Abbey, and this is indeed a very fascinating place. And this is the place, and all of this too, boy, we're going to put another whole layer of understanding of it. This is the area that was called Camelot. Well, tomorrow night we're going to be doing the JFK assassination broadcast. The Kennedys were likened to Camelot, and we have here the legendary place of King Arthur. And here in this abbey, this was the place where many believe in, this is tradition and people dispute it and all this and all that. But if you would go to the Glastonbury Abbey today, the Glastonbury Abbey, which I believe this is in Scotland, I believe this whole area, the British Isles, this is supposedly the grave there of King Arthur, where he is buried right there. Now, we've talked about this a lot, and right there it is. the site of King Arthur's tomb in the year 1191. The body of King Arthur and his queen were said to have been found on the south side of the Lady Chapel on the 19th of April, 1278. Their remains were removed in the presence of King Edward I and Queen Eleanor to a black marble tomb on this site. This tomb survived until the dissolution of the abbey in 1539. So this is the stuff that legends are made out of. This is the
smoking gun.
is just brain food to me. I love it. Now, this is something that John put on the table in a midnight ride on Attila the Hun. And this is a book, Attila, King of the Huns by William Herbert. And he quotes a very, very interesting idea that I think has legs. And I'll just read a little bit here about what Mr. Herbert said, and I'll let John expand upon this. He did a entire midnight ride on this. And he writes this. He said, whether such a man as Patrick, and it's talking about St. Patrick, the legend of driving the snakes out and all that. But he said, whether such a man as Patrick actually existed and was sent on a secret mission by Attila to prepare the way for himself as Antichrist, as we read in the Scandinavian sagas that Attila sent Herbert on a mission to King Arthur in Great Britain, or whether Patrick was merely a fictitious name used by those in Ireland who look to the coming of Attila as Antichrist. And we have this amazing, and here again, we're talking about the royal family in England. Do we have reason to believe that they are tied at the deepest level with these Nephilim-like characters? But John, just speak to this. This is just amazing.
Yeah, man, it was really interesting read, and I read so much on that era and that time period and that whole thing surrounding Arthur and Merlin and all that. In this same book that David is presenting here, the Attila, the King of the Huns, it talks about the possibility that Attila and King Arthur actually might be the same person. And so I dug into this information, and I found the achievements of King Arthur. I also found the achievements of Attila the Hun. It just so happens that the achievements are pretty much identical as far as what they achieved. And it is impossible to me to prove that they're not the same person, but it's also impossible to prove it. But it's interesting because at one time, Attila the Hun actually had control and was paid tribute by every nation that traded in the Silk Route, every nation that traded along that whole Asian area and everything in between. I mean, right in between, even had strongholds in England to the point, and a lot of people say he never made it to England, but I'm wondering that if he made it to England, but he changed his name as to King Arthur, and so he could promote this idea of this grandiose, chivalrous character that needs to be allowed to have, I guess, genealogy and kingship from here on out, because that's kind of what happened. You know, they get the age of chivalry, which most of the books and most of the stuff about King Arthur that is written, you can't find very much history on that other than looking at the history of the royals of England, the kings of England. And when you look at that, lineage, when it gets to that part of the book, when it gets to the part to where they've pretty much been ravaged by Huns, they've been ravaged by giants, according to this book. They've been ravaged by the Assyrians. Everybody around them has been ravishing them. They're looking to Rome for help. Rome's not going to help them. And then this kind of hero arises out of King Arthur. And when this hero arises, you see all of these interesting stories that take place. And I know David is going to be talking about some of them here, but man, it's really interesting. And there's definitely no doubt that through the genealogies of the people of England, the kings of England, that they mix in with all of these bloodlines. And then they say it themselves. We're not slandering people. We're not even making up conspiracies about them. This is within their own lineage that they are attached to some of these serpent, quote unquote, serpent bloodlines. It's pretty amazing. But this whole book right here, I definitely, I've read several books on the subject. This one was pretty good, and it's not a hard read. The only thing I don't like about the book, David, is there's no page numbers.
Yeah, it's really sectioned off difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worth the effort.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And you weren't insulting Attila by calling him the Antichrist. He said, "Yeah, I'm the Antichrist,"
Yeah.
and his plan was to go to England and destroy Christianity in England. And it's believed that, and by many, that just like John said, the King Arthur scenario was a psyop by Attila to prepare the Britons to receive him as the Antichrist. Yeah. It was and at that time, the Druids held sway there, and of course that'd be just some red meat for them to believe that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing too, David, just to point out the sword thing, the sword and the stone idea.
Yeah,
that's Attila the Hun. They worship
yeah.
the sword. They worship and they would even offer sacrifices around this sword that was in this stone.
Yeah, King Arthur had Excalibur. Yeah, so it matches them. And even if maybe Attila was King Arthur, we don't know, but we know there's a close association here with the story of Attila and this whole area there. It's very, very interesting. And what's also interesting, and you just wouldn't think this is how things should be, but there are not just a few churches there in the British Isles that had giants buried in the church graveyard. And the church graveyard, you should have grandma and grandpa out there and have a nice stone for them, but you shouldn't have 14-foot giants in your church graveyard. But we're going to show you that there are gaggles of churches in the British Isles that to this day have giants in the graveyard. Now, this is one right here. This is the Reator St. Clement's Church, and this is an actual photo of the giant's grave. And all of these churches have detailed stories about the history of their giants and how they interacted with the people and all of this. I mean, this is so deeply rooted in the culture in this area that, I mean, it's just a deep, deep part of their heritage. And here's another one. This is the giant's grave at Penrith. And this is the St. Andrew's Church at Penrith here in England. Now,
man, I'd be so tempted to dig them up. Come in at night time and dig them up.
You notice here they have the two like obelisk type structures there on the end. And note here, look at the top stone here. What do you see? You see the spiral. There we have the spiral on this giant's grave. And like I say, the spiral, you can see that there's a close-up of the spiral on the giant's grave at Penrith here in the British Isles. And this is just the smaller signature of the hinge. So there it is. I mean, it is just not just a few of these, but there are a lot of these. And I mean, these are not little. There's one here. Here's a drawing of what is called the Saint B giant. And this is, again, this is from the book by Mr. Vieira and Mr. Newman. And this guy was a 13.5 foot giant. And there's another one. I mean, we're talking 14, 15 feet tall. And yeah, we got them out here in the church graveyard. Yeah, and there you go. So, the evidence of the Nephilim giants in this area in the British Isles, it is so steeped in their culture that we have every reason to believe that this carries right in to the royal family. And indeed, these were the ones. We're going to show you some direct evidence from their own literature that this is the case. And we also did another midnight ride on the tribe of Dan. And we conclusively tied in the tribe of Dan with the Merovingian bloodline. And the Merovingians, they were one of the stock bloodlines that is intermarried with all of the European royalty. And we tied this directly to the tribe of Dan and the Nephilim. It's not just maybe they are absolutely soaked with Nephilim DNA. Now, something else that is kind of strange, kind of strange, like Taylor Swift's Missing Eye is strange. But many of these royal bloodlines, they would even have a brother and sister marry because they wanted to preserve the purity of that blood. And some of the paintings of these European royals, I mean, they look strange. We're looking strange looking folk because they would actually incestuously marry to perpetuate the purity of that blood. And we've in the past, we pulled in quotes from Lawrence Gardner. And Lawrence Gardner, who has written and maintained that this interbreeding in these royal bloodlines, this has been going on till thousands of years BC. They have been maintaining and building these bloodlines, and they guard it with the utmost unholy sanctity.
Even in Ezekiel 29:3, it calls Pharaoh the great dragon of the river. He made his own river, and he calls him that. And if you look at some of these pictures of these pharaohs, and you look at their body shape, their structure, man, they have a really unique structure that almost a male-female type mix. And if you remember some of the shows that we did, we talked about that ideology where some of the angels were actually hermaphroditic, and they had two sexes, which meaning they could procreate with themselves.
I saw that plane crash on the news this morning, Diane. They're dropping out the sky, just like Mike said.
Those reproducing themselves, virtually living forever, and this was the ideology behind that. But sometimes I wonder when I look at these Egyptian kings and I look at Ezekiel 29, where it says, literally calls them a dragon. That's interesting to me.
It is, and we just recently, one of our very recent midnight rides on Peru, and we were talking about the absolute fact that there have been bodies found there that the DNA tests prove they got non-human DNA in them, and we showed the little fella Albert, this body that was found in Peru, and Albert had no sexual organs. He was literally asexual. And I believe, and we showed there the Nazca line that looked just like little Albert. There was Albert and Maria and these different little creatures that were found in Peru. And they were real bodies, and they had non-human DNA in them. These are just the facts that the powers that be don't want us to try to process and to figure out what's going on here. But we have every reason to believe that, factual reason. And we're going to show another, this is on the Rothesay on the Isle of Butte, a little video of the Big Man Walking Parade. So this is another one of the local giant legends that is just so deeply rooted in the culture. But just watch the big man go. There he goes. And look on his head. He's got a little pentagram on his head.
Notice he's blue too. A lot of the Hindu gods, little G, are actually blue as well. And blue kind of denotes dead too. Denotes dead. When you die, you turn blue. It's really interesting, man. A lot of these giants are depicted blue.
Yeah, and this is a big deal. I mean, this is so steeped in the culture, and
that looks more like Wonder Woman with that crown it's wearing.
This area, that it's just undeniable. They're just all about it, and there the big guy goes, the big man walking over there in England. Watch the big man go.
And there's another video too, David, that I thought you were talking about before, was a China giant. Have you seen that one where it's a big kind of chunky China giant walking down the street? They do those over there as well.
Yes, I have. Absolutely. And there's no doubt about it. Now, this is a book. And if you look down there at the bottom, by golly, this is edited by John Pounders and Adam Ybarra. Imagine that. How about that? Now, this book is one that Now You See TV has reprinted, and it's The History of Gog and Magog, The Champions of London by John Galt. And can you order this off the website, John?
You can order it off of either Amazon or off one of the links in the description.
They're red hot, aren't they?
They're actually
YouTube.
cheaper right now. They're on sale on trutherpit.com. So if you go in the links below, you can get it there. It's cheaper than you can get it on Amazon. So if you want to get it, check it out. Awesome artwork by Adam. I mean, he's the guy that does most of our thumbnails and intros, and he did an amazing job of bringing this story to life. And I'm really, really fond of it, actually.
I'm fond of it also. And I'm fond of Adam. And Adam Ybarra and Brian Reese are now doing a regular weekly broadcast on FOJC Radio every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Central, Drawing Living Waters. You'll have to check that out. It's unique. I call it Sanctified Bob Ross. That's what I call it. And it's just really unique. You're just not going to see anything quite like this anywhere. So I'm very thankful that that's a part of our network. And let's just read a little bit. And this is just one of these books that has slipped through the cracks, that fills in the history here of the British Isles and of the very close association that they have with the giants. And I'll just read a little bit from this book. This is from chapter 2, and it's entitled How Humbug the Giant Fell in Love with the Beautiful Princess Londonia, like London, Londonia. And you know, the old expression, bah humbug, which is big in Britain, one of them, I love those British expressions like the porkies and tickety boo. They just kind of lodge in my mind, and I have to repeat them for some reason. I don't know why, but I just love the way they talk and the little clever sayings that they have. But we'll just read a little bit about Princess Londonia and Humbug the Giant. It says here, and this is on page 21, one fine summer's day, as Humbug was taking a stroll by himself, meditating on the benevolence of nature, greatly astonished, and he comes on this charming Londonia, and it says, greatly astonished at the splendor of her beauty, he thought proper to fall desperately in love with her, not aware that she could never return his passion, for she was the daughter of a king whom he had himself dethroned and murdered. Whoops, Humbug had already killed her daddy, but he was in love with Londonia, and you can't keep a good giant down. On page 22, the rest of the story, the kind of the way it ends up, it says, before she could recover herself, the giant came up, and seizing her by the hair, carried her to his gloomy abode and threw her into a dark dungeon in the hope of thereby gaining her affections. This, of course, is the direct history and the legend of the British Isles, where they readily admit in all of their literature and their legends and their history that giants did indeed breed with the British royal, with the very princess whom London was named after. That, and of course, this is just for those of you, and we know we're very, very thankful that we have new listeners all the time. And a lot of you, if you're coming out of mainline churches, or you've been in, went even to a mainline Bible school, you were probably taught that the sons of God in the 6th chapter of Genesis, that these were the sons of Seth. But indeed, they were not. They were the fallen angels that chose to meet with human women. And we're going to have this scripture. This scripture will be, it'll be pulled up after this video. But so we'll wait then to read that scripture and go into that. But that's what we're talking about. This is obvious. I mean, it talks in Genesis chapter 6 about them taking their wives. Well, here we have Humbug the giant. Well, we'll grab her by the hair and we'll just drag her down to the cave. Okay. You know, this is so obviously the continuation of that Genesis 6 scenario, embedded in the very deepest part of the culture and heart, warp and woof. of British loyalty. And
it's interesting too, David. Humber the Hun was what I believe that he was a Hunnish king who took over Albany basically at the time, and I think it might be referring to this guy, but they have a river named after him, and it's interesting, man. Like, so when you look at Gog and Magog, just to kind of show how important it is in there, in that book it talks about this, but we're getting ready to watch a video that David's got up here about the Lord in a Lord Mayor show. These people are hailed in the hall there, and they are very important figures to the Lord Mayor show.
yeah, they absolutely were. And something else that is just deeply fascinating, and it's not a
There's nothing to eat.
coincidence
Stop hanging
that
around.
in this area there are so many names that have Og
Stop
in
hanging
them.
around me. I've got
That
no
have,
food for you.
and
That's all.
I've got a list of them here somewhere, but I mean, there is a bunch of them where in this area in the British Isles, literally, it's got Og in the name. So, you know, these things are not, they're not coincidental. But here's a little bit we've talked about this before, and I'm sure that a lot of people don't know that in the city of London, and the city of London is different from London. And what's called the City of London, it's independent and separate. And in the City of London, this is where the mother lodge of all Freemasonry exists. This is where the Bank of England, run by the British Rothschilds, exists right here in the City of London. The head of Universal Freemasonry, the head of finance, is right here in the City of London, not London proper, but a total separate entity. And they have the Lord Mayor of London. And every year, what you going to do? Well, we're going to have us a little Gog Magog parade. They love Gog and Magog. They love their giants. And they have a little giant celebration every year. And let's just watch a little bit of this and see how the Brits get down with old Gog and Magog. There you go. And it's just like the other festivals. This is the biggest and the most famous, but there's all kinds of little.
With Troy, the story about Troy, Achilles, Hector, and Paris, they're actually Nephilim. And when they got beat, Paris went to Europe, and that's where Paris comes from. And that's why it's called the City of Love, because of Helen, whatever her name was, Helen. And another one, I'm not sure, but another giant went to England and settled England. It was on the same story I read. So they actually come from the fall of Troy.
Festivals. Yeah, there you go. That's old Magog. We got old Gog and Magog. There they go. And it's a big deal. And you know, this is there where the most powerful people in Freemasonry and in finance are right here. And they love it. And they know what's going down. You know, they know the guys in the know and in the go, they absolutely know what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah, man. I think a lot of this too, you know, when you look at kind of I guess the worship of these giants, and you see the amount of effort and money and stuff that's gone into magnifying these beings, and you look at Gog and Magog according to prophecy in the Bible, and you see what all of that means, and the possible saving of the city of London. What does that mean? What do they owe? What does London owe to these giant bloodlines? I mean, I did a show not too long ago that a lot of people saw because it's really prominent right now. Charles just became king, and there are those, Tim Cohen to be exact, that have written a book, and other people have written a book on the idea that he might actually be the Antichrist. And so when we look at stuff like this book that we decided to remaster because there was no really good copies of it, so we decided to remaster this Gog and Magog book, and this book has so much metaphorical history in it that it's amazing to me, because when I was looking at that, I was able to find remnants of history that were equated to that. And a lot of people wrote in that style back then because there was a great persecution for speaking about true things. And sometimes when people wrote in fiction and wrote in these ways, that it really brought out the story in a way that people could read it, but they also could possibly understand it in the future. And it's really interesting. The name John Galt, which was the original author, is also a character in Atlas Shrugged, which is really interesting too. So there's a mystery there with this whole book that I was just, enamored with, I guess.
Yeah. And the John Galt that wrote this book came before the Ayn Rand book, Atlas Shrugged, and the mover, the shaker, and that is John Galt. So, these things are messages.
Yeah.
These things are messages by the elite. And I like books like this one because it's a piece of history. And we, as our British friends would say, we are being told porkies. They're telling us porkies, my friend. And we know that we're being lied to by the powers that be about history, about even the way that our earth and the world we live in is. We're being told many, many porkies. And the truth is out there and you can unravel it. And these things have been buried and suppressed. So I greatly value that. I love to get books like this because you can peel back the onion and you can discern the lies of the trail of the serpent that he has perpetuated upon us.
Interestingly enough, too, the humbug, that word humbug, that is the first time that I could find that word mentioned in any literature, even before the Christmas Carol written. The word was written before that in that book, which is really interesting to me. I don't know why, but it is. It's really cool because I always wondered what humbug meant. Where did that come from?
Yeah. And it's just like there's just something that strikes down in the heart of us that's we just know that there's a basis of truth behind this. We just somehow intrinsically know this. Um, Now we're going to read, and like I say, we've got, I'm sure, new listeners tonight. We're so thankful. Welcome to the Midnight Ride. I hope we haven't scared you to death. But you'll find us saying things here on the Midnight Ride that you'll not hear anyone else say. But if you listen and if you look and you do a little digging, you'll find that we don't talk off the top of our head here. That when we come to conclusions, they're conclusions based in fact. And there are many times we have to admit, well, this is our opinion. We can't conclusively prove it, but we've got a lot of evidence that points this way, and maybe we might want to consider this. Now, there are things that are not theoretical, and that's the Word of God. The Word of God gives us the concrete revelation. It is how we understand history. It's how we understand the world that we live in. And for many of our new listeners, the story of Humbug and Londonia, this is the story of the ongoing saga of the Genesis 6 scenario. And let's read Genesis chapter 6 and verse 4. And as I say, for many of you that are in mainline churches, you're being told that the sons of God were the sons of Seth. And this sadly is taught in most of the Bible schools. It's very, very sad. And this is not even debatable biblically. I mean, this is just a slam dunk that we're talking about the angels mating with human women. But Genesis 6 and 4, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children unto them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. And let's read verse 2. I'm going to read verse 2 here. Let's just go to the top of Genesis 6. Let's just read a little bit here. Genesis 6 and 1. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God, and we can prove that refers to angels. We find it in Job, the 38th chapter. We also find it in the first chapter of the book of Job. And every reference from Jewish or the ancient fathers, there was nothing else contrary to taught until, I don't know, it was about 800 or 900 AD before anyone ever started teaching the Sethite theory. But it says in verse 2, that the sons of God, the angels, the fallen angels, saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took And they took them wives, of all which they chose, just like old humbug chose Ladonia. Well, we'll grab you by the hair, and how do you like my cave here? You know, and this is literally just explicitly what we see here going on in the history of the British royals. And the Lord said, "My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown." So this is how we process information. We believe that the Bible has answers to the way that things were and to the way that things shall be. And when we look at these mysteries that we have, we begin to realize very quickly as we begin to study and peel the onion that indeed we have been told porkies. But we also, with the Word of God, we can come to much understanding and revelation about the way that things really are and about the things that we will soon see coming upon this good old flat earth.
Amen to that. And what an awesome broadcast, David. Thank you for presenting that information. And I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed it, and hopefully I was able to add a little bit of content to it. I don't know.
Yep, I enjoyed it. Right, let's do that. I'll come back to that. There. Well, which one will I do?
What if you had AI-powered defenses and dedicated...
Hey everybody, welcome to another Daily Renegade update. We got a lot to talk about. I am a little bit behind the times. I wanted to get to this last week, but I was fighting off a horrible flu, and I couldn't even get out of bed, let alone do a video. So there's been a lot of news lately about a new asteroid.
Okay, it's only 2 days old, guys, so it's straight off the belt.
That may hit the Earth in 2032. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what that might have to do with Apophis 2029. We're going to talk about Bible prophecy and the trumpet judgments and lots of stuff. And we're going to compare this with Tom Horn's vision. And if you're not familiar with that, we'll get into all that. So lots to talk about in today's update. Also, if you haven't had a chance, make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, subscribe, follow. If you're on YouTube, click the bell to turn on all notifications so you know whenever a new video comes up. I'm going to try to do more of these update videos. Every weekday I have at least an hour that I can do stuff because I have a lunch break, you know, from my normal 9 to 5 Prophecy Watchers job. But I work from home and I don't eat lunch. I intermittent fast. I eat twice a day. So I figured, well, why not spend that time, you know, doing update videos? Usually I'm catching up on other things, but I'm going to try to do more of these like shorter update videos for you guys more often. But yeah, please subscribe, share this video all around, and hit the like button, comment. That kind of stuff really, really helps. And I want to grow our YouTube audience as much as we can, because that's the main place that people hear about Daily Renegade, which we'll talk about later. But basically, if you want early access to all the full videos we do, stuff that's not even available on YouTube, then you want to get a membership at dailyrenegade.com. More about that later. But anyway, so all that said, there was a headline that went up not too long ago, like a couple of weeks ago. This is from space.com, but at first it said the original headline, and it's changed a little bit now, but it was that astronomers discover a 196-foot asteroid with a 1 in 83 chance of hitting the Earth in 2032. Now that chance has gone up. Like there's more of a chance now, but we'll talk about it. So what, you know, these years keep coming up. We keep hearing about 2025, 2026, 2029, 2032. You know, all of these dates in a short period, like a really short period, and all these convergences and stuff makes me wonder, like, man, it really seems like we're living in the end times, doesn't it? Or at least very, very close to it, depending how you define end times. If end times to you is just the tribulation, then we're obviously not there yet. But like I think we're right at the doorstep. So the article says that a newly discovered asteroid, and it's designated 2024 YR4. I really wish they would come up with better names for these. But now this was back at the very end of January. It said that it had a 1 in 83 chance of striking the Earth in December of 2032. Now keep that in mind, because the Apophis asteroid is supposed to be April of 2029. So this would be roughly, not exactly, but roughly about 3.5 years later, which is interesting because, and I'll get into why, but I believe that during the tribulation, I believe that prophecy does speak of an asteroid that will hit roughly in halfway through the tribulation. And there could be another event there at the very, very end that could be another asteroid attack in the bowl judgments. But we'll get into all that a little bit later. So it says that this asteroid is estimated to be 196 feet meters wide, and it's currently 27 million miles away. So this was discovered in 2024. And it's around half as wide as a football field is long. And it's going to make a very close approach to Earth on December 22nd, 2032. It's, you know, that's funny. I just remembered, remember that whole Mayan apocalypse thing in 2012? That was December 21st, 2012. This is December 22nd, 2032. So that's like, what, 20 years and 1 day away from that. Anyway, not saying that's anything. That just kind of, I thought that was kind of interesting. But it said it's estimated to come around 66,000 miles of Earth on that day. However, when orbital uncertainties are considered, that close approach could turn out to be a direct hit on our planet, it says. Such an impact could cause an explosion in the atmosphere called an airburst, or could cause an impact crater when it slams to the ground. It says that this is enough to see asteroid 2024 YR4 leap to the top of the European Space Agency's NEO, or Near Earth Object Impact Risk List, and NASA's Sentry Risk Table. So Sky Survey engineer and asteroid hunter David Rankin wrote on Blue Sky, quote, odds have slightly increased to 1 in 83. And keep in mind, this is January 28th that this came out. This is one of the highest probabilities of an impact from a significantly sized rock ever. So the asteroid is rated 3 on the Torino risk scale, which indicates a close encounter that warrants close attention from astronomers, and an over 1% chance of impact. So it was initially founded. This asteroid was initially found by NASA-funded project called Atlas, using the project's telescope in Chile. So At first, Rankin said, quote, people should absolutely not worry about this yet, end quote. Then he continued, impact probability is still very low, and the most likely outcome will be a close approach rock that misses us. But he also added that currently the risk corridor for impact runs from South America across the Atlantic to sub-Saharan Africa. So it could be anywhere in that area. And then he also said that it's just important to keep in mind that its orbit is still too uncertain to know if it will hit. And right now, the most likely outcome is a miss. This impact corridor estimation will eventually go stale with new observations and better orbit calculations. Now, of course, every time there's an asteroid, they always say that. They always say, like, the chances are really low. And it always makes me wonder, you know, would they tell us, you know, or is it like in the movies where they keep it, they kind of keep it secret so people don't panic? But again, like if
they keep it secret.
Asteroid is going to impact the Earth and kill a bunch of people anyway. I don't know. I don't know if they would tell us or not. And a lot of times, even if it's not a cover up or a conspiracy, a lot of times in scientific circles, they typically don't reach hard conclusions until there's an overwhelming amount of evidence. And even then, they'll say, well, it seems probable. It's just the way scientists talk. So while they say that the chances are low, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's nothing. So, hey, everyone. You know, concerning the economically unstable times that we live in, it is a great idea to convert some of your savings into real money. Now, there is a big difference between real money and what we call money, which is actually currency. So our dollar is currency, which fluctuates. Real money, like silver, is a store of value over time. The best way to think of it is like this. If you had saved $1,000 in cash back in the late 60s, the late 1960s, that $1,000 would still be $1,000 today, but it would buy you significantly less today due to inflation. Now, if you saved that same $1,000 in silver back in the 1960s, it would be around $28,000 today. So one of the best ways to protect your purchasing power is in real money, more specifically, silver. Now, you can buy and have the metal shipped discreetly to your door. And what most people don't know is that you can actually convert your IRA or even your 401k into physical silver rather than having all your life savings tied up in the paper fiat system, which is, of course, subject to hyperinflation. So go to dailyrenegade.com right now and click on the Cornerstone Asset Metals banner and sign up to get your free silver report. One of the financial experts will speak with you and find out the best way to protect your savings going forward in these uncertain times. You can also click on the link in the description below that goes directly to cornerstoneassetmetals.com. Make sure you tell them that Josh Peck at Daily Renegade sent you. It is time to stop trusting the evil beast financial system of the world and protect your assets today. What kind of damage could this cause? Well, it's predicted that it would be around the same size as the 1908 Tunguska event or the meteor crater rock. So the impact effects would be more localized than regional, but it still has the potential to do serious damage to the area it hits, like if it hit a city or something. So it doesn't seem like right now this is like a world killer or anything like that. But at the same time, when we do look at prophecy, which we will look at a little later, the asteroids that hit, they don't destroy the world either. They cause a lot of damage for sure, and we'll see how. But they don't destroy the entire world. If you're not familiar with Tunguska, it's currently the largest recorded asteroid strike event in human history, though there's probably a lot more from prehistoric times. But Tunguska, there was a lot of damage, but it was in a pretty remote area. It released the same energy as the detonation of up to 50 million tons of TNT when it exploded in the atmosphere. And that was over a very sparsely populated region of Russia. And the blast flattened an estimated 80 million, trees over an area of 830 square miles. And it may have killed 3 people. So Rankin said, if asteroid 2024 Y24 is made of, if this asteroid for 2032 is made of stony material, it could cause a significant air burst and fireball reaching the ground. If made of iron, it will punch right through the atmosphere with little trouble and make an impact crater. This is why understanding not just the orbit, but also the composition and size are so crucial, or are so critical, excuse me. So now they're trying to learn as much as they can about it. But then there was another headline that came out shortly after, just really a couple of weeks after, saying that now this asteroid, instead of being a 1 in 83 chance, now it has a 1 in 48 chance of hitting the Earth. And they've done observations. If you go to space.com, the headline is what the asteroid with a 1 in 48 chance of hitting the Earth in 2032 looks like. If you wanted to see images of it, it's real blurry. It's super blurry, pixelated, you know, obviously. So it's really not much to see. But if you wanted to take a look at that, that's where to find that. But this says that that now this asteroid, it's a 1 in 48 chance of impacting Earth, and that so that's the chances of it hitting almost doubled in just a couple of weeks. Now it says, for obvious reasons, astronomers are desperate to learn as much as they can about 2024 YR4, estimated to be as large as 177 feet wide, which is as wide as Cinderella's castle in Walt Disney World, Florida is tall. What a weird comparison. I don't have any idea what that even looks like, but I guess this asteroid is as wide as that is tall. Why would they word it like that? Why wouldn't they just say it's as big as that? Because it's an asteroid. There's no up or down. I mean, anywhere you said it, they could have just said it's that wide. Anyway, so that size comparison doesn't help me out at all, but it's big. So it says they were able to capture an image of it February 7th. And Bryce Ballin of the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, he's an astronomer there, who helped capture the image, says that, you know, it's really exciting. He says, quote, not only because of its notoriety, but for the scientific potential of studying such a small asteroid in high detail. Only a few asteroids have been studied like this, end quote. Talks a little bit about how they got the picture. And now what's interesting, though, too, is they are really trying to track this as carefully as they can, because around mid-March, so just like in a month from now, it's going to be harder to detect this asteroid from the ground because of its orbit. So it will become, and so it'll start to fade away from view. We won't be able to see it anymore. And then it won't become visible again until mid-2028 as it reapproaches Earth. So he says, Mullen says, quote, therefore, this is the last chance we have to observe the asteroid from Gemini before 2028, end quote. And so we'll just have to keep up on it and see if the trajectory changes, if the math gets more specific, if they're able to pinpoint even more closely, like maybe next time, maybe in a couple more weeks, it'll be a 1 in 20 chance. You know, who knows? We're going to have to keep our eyes on this. And also, I should mention too that End Time Headlines covered this too. They just got a short blurb about it. Basically, it's not a full. Yeah, it's not really a full article, but it just says astronomers have raised alarm over an asteroid measuring approximately the width of a full-size football field pitch, which is projected to make a close approach to Earth in just 7 years. The object, believed to be measured between 40 and 100 meters in diameter, was first detected on Christmas Day by a specialized telescope. We talked about that already. And so upon analysis of its current trajectory, it's been determined that this asteroid is currently retreating from the Earth at an astounding speed of 38,000 miles per hour, but Its orbital path indicates that it will come dangerously close to our planet around holiday season in 2032, specifically December 22nd. So official assessments are saying it's a 1.2% probability of direct collision. And then that estimation marks one of the most significant collision risks ever recorded by the ESA, prompting the designation of this asteroid as top entry on the asteroid risk list. So for context, the asteroid deemed to pose the second highest risk carries a mere 0.68% chance of impact. So they're keeping an eye on it. So it says, in light of this imminent threat, 2 international organizations are collaborating to evaluate potential response strategies and mitigation measures should the risk grow more severe as the impact date approaches. You know, something that my wife and I have talked about, you know, we know prophecy, and when you get into some of the judgments, it really seems like an asteroid's going to hit the Earth at some point, probably during the trumpet judgments. And, you know, we've talked about, we're sending probes to these asteroids and stuff. What if just us doing that? Or what if we do see an asteroid that has a higher probability chance, like a 1 in 10 chance or something, and it was enough where NASA or somebody wanted to do something about it and tried to deflect it? Well, what if in doing that, that actually is what alters the course to make it hit Earth? Like if we would have just left it alone, it wouldn't have. Now we know regardless, because prophecy is set in stone. There are different ways that these prophecies can be played out, but it really seems like it's an asteroid impact. So either way, it's going to happen. But we've talked about that before, like because they wanted to like when Apophis gets closer. We're going to talk about Apophis in a little bit too. But when Apophis gets closer, they've been talking about wanting to send probes or possible deflection measures or whatever. And so it just makes you wonder. But either way, prophecies can be fulfilled. So
hey, Shawnee, good to see you.
Now, if you haven't heard of Apophis, it's been known for a while, but
yeah, Shawnee, the Wi-Fi kept dropping out. I had to reboot and do a security check. And by the time I'd done that, it was only like half an hour I would have hung up anyway, so I didn't do it.
Come up to more high, I guess, popularity, infamy. I don't know. More people know about it now. But they at first said that there is a really, really, really low chance, like it's not going to hit the Earth. But then they started changing their tune, and they NASA and all these people, all these scientists started saying, well, now it depends on the trajectory, and if it hits this specific part of the space above Earth, that it could come careening into the Earth, and people are wondering about that. And I did a movie on it called Ragnarok. I did a documentary film with Tom Horn about it, because
it dropped out twice yesterday, Shawnee, and that's unusual.
Tom Horn actually had a vision about this stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute. But they're saying now that, and so Apophis, if it's going to hit, they said it would be April 13th, 2029, which is actually Friday the 13th of 2029. And so now they're saying, and this comes from iflscience.com, but now they're saying that the chance of asteroid Apophis hitting Earth may be slightly higher than we thought. No one gets into full-time ministry to make money. At least no one should. Given that, Daily Renegade accepts donations from those who care to help keep us going. Now, because Daily Renegade does not want to be told by the government what we can and can't say, we're not 501c3. So your donations are not tax deductible, but that's not why you're giving anyway, to get something back for yourself. Speaking of which, we
Actually, I'll do that Trump King one now. Where is they are? Who does this so?
Did you know we lose up to 15% of our muscle mass every decade? Ensure is a nutritional drink clinically shown to improve muscle strength in 90 days. Feel the Ensure difference and stand for strength today.
Trump left this post on Truth Social. Congestion pricing is dead. Manhattan and all of New York is saved. Long live the king. So aside from the sheer craziness of everything that Donald Trump does, it's comments like this that demonstrate that inwardly he really does see himself as a savior and a king. And what we're going to find out over the coming months and the next couple of years is that everything will continue to move in the direction of giving Donald Trump more and more power. He really does want to be a king. And of course, Bible prophecy talks about the Antichrist being the eighth and final king. Another story that broke overnight was about Pope Francis having double pneumonia, and several sources in Europe talked about how he was on the edge of death. It's not widely covered in
No, I won't cheer for that. I was gonna.
American media, but I do maintain that what happens to this Pope is of interest as far as Bible prophecy goes, as I do think the next Pope could very well be the false prophet. All we have to do is consider the sheer evil of the Vatican down through the centuries for us to know that they will play a big role in the last few years. Another story was about Zelensky sniping back at Trump after Trump basically said that Ukraine started the war. It's truly amazing how quickly Trump once again warmed up to Putin once he got back in power. So it's a pretty good assumption that whatever peace does happen in the Russia-Ukraine war, it's going to heavily favor Russia. There was a story on Axios about Trump administration targeting the
Okay, and what's wrong with that? I'd rather Russia than Ukraine. I'd rather Putin and Zelensky.
U.S. Institute of Peace, which I found rather symbolic, today also saw Trump sign another executive order giving him power over normally independent federal agencies. So if we think back to how he said he was going to be dictator for one day, we're now in day 30, I believe, and he shows no sign of slowing down. And the final thing I want to mention is about those comments that just don't show up sometimes. Now, I don't have my reading glasses in front of me, so I can't exactly see what this one says. I think this person is just a little perplexed.
Okay, yeah, he wasn't happy, that dude. Where were we? Okay, yeah, that was it.
Full-time ministry to make money. At least no one should. Given that, Daily Renegade accepts donations from those who care to help keep us going. Now, because Daily Renegade does not want to be told by the government what we can and can't say, we're not 501c3. So your donations are not tax deductible, but that's not why you're giving anyway, to get something back for yourself. Speaking of which, we here are never going to promise that if you donate, God will reward you with even more financial success. We're not about making promises for God here. But what I can promise is your donations are very much appreciated and help the continuation of everything we do here at Daily Renegade to reach the world with the truth of the Bible. Also, as many of you know, my son Nathan has had some very serious medical issues that we are treating with good, all natural and holistic remedies. But of course, those are very expensive and are not covered by insurance. So your donations help go towards his health care as well. If you can't afford to donate, you can always donate your time in prayer, which is far more valuable anyway. Let's be serious. So pray for our wisdom, pray for God's guidance for us, and that we never lose focus on what's really important, which is using Daily Renegade as a light of truth that the world so desperately needs right now, especially in these times. As always, thank you so much for your generosity, and I pray God blesses you greatly. They're always careful in how you know, science, they're always careful. It's slightly high. They won't just say higher. But It says a new study looking at the potential hazardous asteroid Apophis has suggested that the odds of impact in 2029 or 2036 are ever so slightly higher than we thought. Because this asteroid Apophis, it comes around and around and around and around. So there's a lot of flyby dates. There's 2029, 2036, and I think 2068 was the other big ones. I think there's a couple of minor ones in the 2050s, somewhere around there. But the big one that people are looking at is 2029. That's the one where it is most likely to hit the Earth. So it says when Apophis was first discovered in 2004, observations briefly placed it at level 4 on the Torino impact hazard scale. So remember the one that they just, the 2032 one is level 3. This one's level 4. With a score of 0 meaning the likelihood of impact is 0 or thereabouts, and 10 meaning a collision is certain, capable of causing global climatic catastrophe that may threaten the future of civilization as we know it, whether impacting land or ocean. So it says that while level 4 might seem low, it's the highest level of any object that has been discovered since NASA first started monitoring potentially hazardous near-Earth objects. It says a close encounter, this is how NASA describes level 4. Quote, a close encounter meriting attention by astronomers. Current calculation gives a 1% or greater chance of collision capable of regional devastation. Most likely, new telescopic observations will lead to reassignment to level 0. Attention by public and by public officials is merited if the encounter is less than a decade away, end quote. So it does say that further observation ruled out a collision in 2029 as well as 2036 and 2068. Though there will still be close encounters, more recent observations have consistently found Apophyses on the course to miss Earth in all these time frames. Now, that's one thing, but that's what they're saying. In Ragnarok, now Tom said that he was pretty convinced there was a NASA cover-up about this, but it could even be, we even explored the possibility, even if it's not that, some of the equipment they're using, the math has to be so precise because we're talking about very large distances. So if you're even like a decimal place off somewhere, it could throw off your entire formula. And there have been a lot of criticisms of the measurement systems that they use for these asteroids. And we talk about that a lot in Ragnarok, that it could be possible. And I guess it has been shown that some of these measuring techniques aren't as accurate as we would like them to be, and because of that, one little tiny thing that's off, and it could totally change the trajectory, and it could make Apophis more likely to hit Earth. There's also a lot of things that are really hard to account for. There's certain effects that happen in space just from the sun shining on the thing. That can create an alteration. I forget what it's called. We talk about that in the movie too, but that can create an alteration in its trajectory. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that can happen, and they really can't.
Shawnee, a lot of houses are burning down because of them batteries. A lot of them.
They can't rule out an impact. They can say it's unlikely, but to say that they're just ruling it out, they really shouldn't even be able to do that. Now, it's interesting to note too that it also says we cannot track all space objects. We find smaller objects regularly, sometimes through astronomical observations and surveys, sometimes when or shortly before they collide with our atmosphere. And I think that's something that needs to be understood as well too. Our technological capabilities to track these things is not as great as a lot of people think it is. Like a lot of people think that there are people that are just tracking every asteroid and we know where everything is and we don't have to worry about it. That we'll have plenty of time. That's really not the case. We're not able to monitor the sky like that. We can only keep track of a very, very, very small percentage of the sky and of the asteroids that might even come close to Earth. There could be a big asteroid headed towards Earth right now that hasn't been discovered yet. It's you got to think of the Earth as a 360 ball where there's sky all around, and the Earth is really big and we are really tiny, and our satellites are really tiny, and it's nearly impossible to keep track of all these things. So we know where a few of them are, but certainly not all of them. I mean, there's even stories like this: asteroid discovered hours before striking Earth's atmosphere. So it said astronomers managed to discover another asteroid, and this is because there was a couple of months, there was like 2 or 3 months where, or maybe longer, but where it seemed like a new asteroid was hitting all the time, and they only discovered it like either as it was coming into the atmosphere or a few hours before, or sometimes they don't even know about it, and it just hits, and they don't know until it actually hits. So that happens a lot. So yeah, astronomers managed to discover another asteroid just hours before it struck the Earth's atmosphere. So if it was big enough, that wouldn't have been enough time to do anything about it. According to reports, a space rock roughly 3 meters wide, so not super huge, entered our planet's atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean on Wednesday. According to NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies data, the asteroid named 2024 UQ impacted the atmosphere about 1,000 kilometers from the California coast. Scientists had predicted that the energy released from the asteroid upon its atmospheric impact would have been less than the one that hit the Philippine sky earlier in September. So this kind of thing happens all the time, and we don't always know about it ahead of time. So that's important to know. Now, talking about wormwood, let's get it. So going back, going back to Apophis wormwood. So Tom Horn, for those not familiar, he was author, host. If you just look up Tom Horn Bible prophecy, you'll find a lot of great stuff. Skywatch TV obviously started that, and I knew Tom for a long time, and he wrote a book called The Wormwood Prophecy. Now, Tom was convinced that Apophis would be the fulfillment of the Wormwood Prophecy. And it's not just because of that, well, the Wormwood Prophecy seems to be an asteroid. This is an asteroid, so that's it. It wasn't just that. Tom actually had a vision of this, and like I know, like whenever I hear stuff like that online, my typical knee-jerk reaction is to be skeptical of it. I definitely I'm not. I believe that people can have visions and God can give people prophecies and stuff today. I don't have any issue with that, but it's just because those gifts, I guess, they've been so abused in our modern culture by just a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing in just the broader Christian church, that for me, unless I really know the person really well and I trust them, for me, when I first hear something like that, I don't automatically write it off, but I am skeptical. Now, the difference with Tom is I did know Tom very, very well. And Tom was not the kind of person that was going to exaggerate. He was not looking for self-fame or anything like that. He was actually a pretty introverted guy, and he even told me one time we traveled a lot together, so me and Tom got a lot of one-on-one time together. And he told me once, it's funny because I can understand it, but he told me that if it was up to him, he didn't really enjoy doing a lot of like the TV shows and stuff. He did it because he was like, it's ministry. I'm taking one for the team. I'm trying to minister to people. But he himself, he wasn't looking for fame. He didn't even really enjoy it. He didn't get the same kind of thrill out of it that a lot of actors get into acting. Hollywood actors, because they want to be rich and famous and all that. And
Shawnee, what was the most dangerous executive order he signed? What was it? Do you know?
Fortunately, a lot of like mega church pastors are like that too. Tom was the complete opposite of that. And so I really related to him a lot with that, because I can definitely understand that now. But he did have this vision. Now, it would still be interesting if it was just a one-off vision. But it wasn't. And for those who don't know, Tom Horn had passed away a year ago, I believe, a year or two ago. But while he was alive, this only happened to him 3 times in his life. So he wasn't one of these, I got a word for you, brother, every Sunday morning, and it's really vague, and you don't know what the guy's talking about, and it doesn't really relate to your life, so you just smile to be polite. Like he wasn't one of those at all. Like in all of the time that I've known Tom, he's never given me a personal word of prophecy or anything like that. And I'm not meaning to make fun of that. It's just, again, that kind of thing is so abused. But he wasn't that kind of guy at all.
No.
This had only happened to him 3 times before in his whole life.
We love Tom Horn.
And the first 2 times, because the Apophis thing would have been the third one, the first 2 times they happened exactly how it happened. The first one was a personal family thing, so I'm not going to tell that story. He does get a little bit into it in Ragnarok, but that one was proven to be true. It had something to do with a church that they were going to at the time, and there was something going on in that church, and it was something along the lines of, he said, like, if you don't fix this, then this will happen. And the way that Tom described it, he says, like, they didn't, and it did. So they didn't listen to him, and whatever happened. So that